Okay, yes, you guys are right. It is the next day. However, I did manage to finish the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and to enjoy it immensely. I enjoyed it so much, in fact, that I this time wrote some notes as well so that I can better impart my thoughts to you guys, right? So the very first thing that I enjoyed, even before starting the book, was the dedication. And the dedication actually seemed so sweet to me. It was to his goddaughter, to C.S. Lewis's goddaughter, that I actually started to research a little bit, and I found out that the girl in question, Lucy Barfield, was actually the adopted daughter of a very close friend of C.S. Lewis's. And I found it so sweet that um, he actually wrote this, like dedicated this whole beautiful story to her, as well as the actual words of the dedication, which I want to read out to you. So it goes like this. To Lucy Barfield. My dear Lucy, I wrote this story for you, but when I began it, I had not realized that girls grow quicker than books. As a result, you are already too old for fairy tales, and by the time it is printed and bound, you will be older still. But some day you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again. You can then take it down from some upper shelf, dust it, and tell me what you think of it. I shall probably be too deaf to hear, and too old to understand a word you say, but I shall still be your affectionate godfather, C.S. Lewis. I just found that so beautiful, and I also found that it's really cute. It's really sweet that he realizes that the Lucy is approaching that sort of age um, where when you get into, for instance, your early teens, you start to, disassociate from everything related to that can be categorized as children's books or children's content, and you actually start to resent that. You say that I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not going to read that fairy tale or whatever, right? And then he also um, noticed how when you sort of grow up, for instance, when you're in your late teens or early 20s, mid 20s, you actually want to go back to that childhood age, and you actually also understand how important stories are, how important tales are, and the themes and stories are, whether they're like children's books or whether any other sort of books. You just understand how important books and stories basically are and what a lot they have to say, and you actually enjoy that. And he had the foresight to write all that, dedicate that to her, and I think she's a very lucky girl that she had a godfather who dedicated this book to her. And I also found out that a few years later, another one of the series of Narnia, he actually dedicated to Lucy Barfield's brother, and that also was really sweet. Also, one of the four key protagonists in the book is also named Lucy Pevensey. So he actually not just dedicated the book to her, but he also named a character after her. And on the note of close friends, I also found out that Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were close friends, which surprised me, seeing as how those two have such different writing styles. So whereas Tolkien is more of he's more a pioneer or a father of high fantasy, right? And he's created these really intricate, very complex, beautiful mythical worlds, which go into a very deep exploration of themes such as very gloomy themes at times, such as heroism, sacrifice, friendship. Really beautiful writing, and writing that stays with you for years after you've read it, and which also takes very long to digest. So I read Tolkien a few years ago. He's actually one of my favorite authors of all time, and it took me about the better part of a year to complete the Lord of the Rings because it was so densely packed, so just mythical, so even just like gloomy, that it put me in a very different sort of mood in itself, and it really made me rethink life, really made me rethink my choices because it has just such complex paradoxes and themes. It's just very beautiful. On the other hand, Lewis, although it's also fantasy, it's not, you wouldn't call it high fantasy, but it's also fantasy, but it's more not just tailored, I wouldn't just say tailored towards like children, because I see that he has a lot of books which are tailored to adults as well, non-fiction books as well. He was actually a Christian apologist, So see that there's a lot of themes related to that, but with Narnia specifically, we see that it's more of children's fantasy and it's more like allegorical, right? Um, and apart from that, also, where Tolkien's books have very like different depictions of right and wrong, and the lines between right and wrong to be very blurred. For instance, you see with the character of Gollum, you see that you're not really sure whether to, whether to resent him or hate him or whether to feel sorry for him or sympathize with him, right? Whereas with the Chronicles of Narnia or with basically Lewis's writing, it's very, very sort of straightforward. It's a very straightforward approach where you basically know what's moral, know what faith, what to believe in. Basically, you just completely know what's right and wrong, and driving that sort of parallel between them is very interesting. And I actually noted it down to study this relationship and study these two for my personal curriculum as well, which I'm developing right now and hopefully will be sharing with you soon, inshallah. Then another thing which I noticed about this book this time around is that the last time that I read it, I was actually quite young, and I believe my favorite character was probably either Susan or Lucy. I don't remember, but because I was young and I just thought that she's like a beautiful, elegant, humble, and like gentle woman or girl or whatever, and very sophisticated. And I fell in love with that character, right? But this time over, I actually realized my favorite character is someone who probably I didn't even think about last time, who probably most people never even think about, and that's Mrs. Beaver. So I'll tell you the scene where I fell in love with her, even though she doesn't come that much in the book, but at the kind of near the middle of the book, there's this really high stakes speed chase that's about to happen. And usually, when that happens in books or in movies or in stories, what people do is that they just, like leave everything as it is and they just run, right? And then even running doesn't really seem to have any like benefit because what happens is that they have no supplies, they're hungry, and they're like dying, and then still they don't reach where they want to reach in time. Still, people like intercept them and they have to fight them off, or they have to cunningly hide or something. And with Mrs. Beaver, I wrote here that a good woman knows how to keep her calm. Because we see that whereas the others are panicking and they're saying, let's get out of here, let's get out of here. She's like, even if we get out of here right now, or even if we get out of here 5 minutes from now, we're still never going to be able to, make it to where we want to go to in time. And we'll still be caught up with, and we'll be all the worse for it if we don't have like supplies with us. So she started packing things, and she was like, we're going to need this bread, we're gonna need this jam, we're gonna need this bread knife. And here, let me make loads for all of you. And oh, can I take my sewing machine? And I just thought that was really, really cute and sweet. And she didn't let like the pressure get to her. She was being very calm and logical, and kind of single-minded. Whereas the others were, she was telling everyone else not to fuss, not to worry, and whereas the others were just panicking and they were not taking her seriously at all, right? And I thought she was really amazing. Right. Other than that, just to cap it off, I'd like to read one more paragraph from the book. So basically, I don't want to give you any spoilers, right? That's why I'm using vague terms. So over here, the protagonists are walking through a field, and it's really beautiful. And they're saying, as the author says, they walked on in silence, drinking it all in, passing through patches of warm sunlight into cool green thickets, and out again into wide mossy glades where tall elms raised the leafy roof far overhead, and then into dense masses of flowering currant and among hawthorn bushes where the sweet smell was almost overpowering. So I thought it was really beautiful, especially the part about drinking it in, right? And I was thinking about how we as readers are drinking in all the beautiful words, beautiful characters, and stories that Lewis has created for us in Narnia. And I definitely enjoyed this book a lot. However, I would still give it 4 stars, whereas I saw on my Goodreads that the last time that I read it, I gave it 5 stars, but that's because I wasn't as analytical at that time as maybe I am right now. I think I'm still not that analytical because most of the books that I read, I end up giving 5 stars or 4 stars. I usually can't bear to, unless it's something really bad, I cannot bear to give it less than 4 stars. most of the time. Like sometimes I'm considering giving a book 3.5 stars or 3.75 stars, but I still end up giving it 4, right? However, the reason that I gave this 4 stars is because that even though the writing in here, it still leaves a lot to the imagination and it could still be like explored a lot more. You could still go into a little more like exploration of the scenes. However, that's not the reason that I give it 4 stars. The reason that I give it 4 stars is because of the continuation that it had with respect to the last book, right? So in the last book, you see this whole world building, and you see how Narnia comes to be, and you see how an evil force enters Narnia, and how there's an object put in place to protect Narnia from the evil force, right? So you have this whole story, you have this sort of logic, even though it's not completely explained logic, but you still understand that that's the logic of that world, right? However, when this book starts, we're not given any explanation whatsoever. We're just told that in Narnia it's always winter, and we're just told that this is the evil force, and they're like they've taken over Narnia. We're not given any explanation. We don't really get to understand how this came to be, how Narnia went from where we left it in the last book to where it is right now. And I thought that that just left a little bit of a loose end, which could have been explored, and it could have made the reading experience a little bit more deeper and more interesting. However, that's not to say that it's not wonderful and just beautiful reading. I really, really loved it. However, I'm not going to be reading the next book just right now for my 7 and 7. I'm going to be picking up Peter Pan tomorrow, or today basically. I picked it up already. And that's my first time reading Peter Pan, so we'll see. That's also children's fantasy, so we'll see how that compares to this. Lastly, I just wanted to talk about how this journey, the 7 and 7 journey for me, how this experience has been. So I would say it's a very rewarding experience, especially since I was in a very huge reading slump and I just wanted to get out of it. And I was trying to look for inspiration for how to do that, and I came across this video 7 and 7, and that's what inspired me, right? I would still say that it's been very difficult because, of course, reading a book, however short it is, in one day, and then reading 7 books in 7 days, that's no small feat, and it definitely takes a toll on you. But I would say that from the past few months, actually, these last 4 days, these last 5 days, have been the most productive and the most wonderful for me, because I feel like I actually did something, I've actually accomplished something worthwhile. I actually forwarded my learning curve, whereas with the work that I do, or with the even with the studies that I do and other stuff, it makes me sometimes feel that even though I'm doing it for a worthy cause, but it still makes me feel sometimes like I'm wasting my life. Like there's this quote, I can't remember it exactly, but it's like, people working hard when they don't want to, in jobs that they don't like, to buy stuff that they actually don't want, to tell themselves that they're happy when they're actually not, something like that it was, right? And that's really true. Like we're always just in a pursuit of just progress and getting forward, or like money to attain certain dreams, or to make certain things real. But in actuality, I think that since life is so short, we should really spend it doing. I think everyone should think this, that we should actually spend it in doing, the things that we enjoy and the things that actually add value, whether it be writing or reading, or whether it be, like watching some film, or just doing something productive with your life, doing something that makes you learn something new that you actually want to remember, on your deathbed. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, anyways. Okay, another good 1.75 days of reading, and I will be with you tomorrow, inshallah, to discuss my thoughts on Peter Pan. I really don't like this cover though. I mean, could I have an uglier cover? We'll work with what we have. Okay. See you next time, guys. Bye.